This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
And it's Free-for-All Friday. You made it, son. You made it. It's all right. It's Free-for-All Friday, which means you can be somebody. All you have to do is pick up the phone and call 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. I encourage common sense, and silliness will be confronted. But other than that, hey, listen, we've got the best listeners in radio. We encourage you to get involved, to get on the line, to talk about anything that's on your mind. Could be the politics of the day. Could be, heck, it could be a guy lugging a 93-pound Petoskey stone out of Lake Michigan that he's probably going to have to turn over to the state now because they say, well, you can't have that. You can talk about that. You can talk about the fact that it's the nicest weather of maybe the entire year. Highs in the 70s, lows in the 40s and 50s. It's absolutely perfect. And you can talk about that anyhow. 888-900-9966. By the way, if you go to stevegruber.com, you can click the Listen Live button to take us to work or wherever you may go. You can find the blogs, the podcast. That's what I'm trying to say. Good Lord. The podcast powered by Podbean. But more importantly, there's a submission form there where you want to leave me a note. And we'll be honest, for a period of time there, Ivy and I weren't quite sure how to find it. Because of our IT provider, we had a couple of questions and some confusion. But we've got all sorts of things now. And I've got input from you, the listeners, there as well. So feel free to drop us a line there. And we've got 3 letters selected here today that we're going to try to get to and talk to you about on the show. So anyhow, that's all at stevegruber.com. You can find it right there. Now, I haven't spent much time talking about the Pope, but we might as well. I mean, how is it, maybe you guys can help me here, how is it that Christians are free game for liberals every day? Every day. But when the Pope comes to town, it's suddenly time to embrace faith. Isn't that weird? Normally those that cling to their Bibles are backwoods bumpkins that aren't much smarter than the family dog. Christians are the scourge of the earth for the major media outlets and a daily punching bag for progressives and Marxists. Of course, that's until the Pope-mobile rolls into town. All of a sudden, hey, look, it's the Pope. Oh, my God, we have to be reverent. And the Pope is talking about climate change. And, he is the moral authority on such things. Who are you talking to? You attack the Pope and every other form of religion except Muslims every day of the week. And all of a sudden, the Pope-mobile comes in. What is it, a Fiat? And whatever. The Pope-mobile rolls in. The Pope-mobile used to be cool. Now we got a Fiat.
Well, it's a Fiat until he gets into the Pope-mobile, which is a Jeep with bulletproof glass.
Okay, fine.
We showed it live on TV last night. But anyway.
The first Pope-mobile A is a Fiat. Pope-mobile B.
Basic transportation from the helicopter to the official Pope-mobile was a Fiat.
Yeah, there you go.
And a little bitty one.
I mean, okay, so here it is. Christians are free game every day. Do the liberals realize he is, anti-abortion and staunchly opposed to gay marriage, despite the spin that liberals tried to put on it here a few months ago? Oh, he supports gay marriage. No, actually he doesn't. It's one of those strange political oddities I've marveled at for years. Like, here's another one for you. Income inequality. It's the drum that is beaten by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and certainly Shane's favorite, Bernie Sanders. Shane's hero, Bernie Sanders. Income inequality. And it's all about income inequality. Right up until the royal family is having a wedding. And by God, we'll stop the presses. We'll run 24-hour coverage of a baby, a wedding, and everything else related to the royal family, which is probably about the most privileged, spoiled group of people on the planet. I guess income inequality only matters when it's, not a spectacle like a royal wedding.
Well, the Catholic Church has always kind of been for income inequality and trying to fix it. But have you ever been inside some Catholic churches, the big ones, cathedrals?
Opulent is the word.
And what's amazing is we did a tour. We were down in Dominican Republic a few years ago.
Yeah.
Did a tour up the mountains and went through the cathedrals in a poor country. And you should see these gold-laden churches.
No, sure.
They're great.
Okay, so here, the Pope addressed Congress yesterday and rebuked Republicans for their lack of compassion for immigration and refugees. Really? The Pope, who comes from the Royal See,
The Holy See.
Holy See, yeah. The Holy See, who, because it's only, a couple of 100 acres or whatever it is.
It's very, very small.
Has one of the most restrictive, almost exclusively closed countries in the world, lecturing America, the most generous country in the world, and targeting Republicans, where we take more immigrants, legal and illegal, than any nation on earth. And the Pope wants to stand there and lecture us about compassion.
What's ironic about that is that the Republicans for a long time says the government shouldn't be doing this, was give it back to the religious groups, mainly the Catholics, for helping the homeless. And
you identify an interesting little quirk there, Shane, because let's be honest, even today, Shane, the biggest provider for money, for pay, are religious organizations, and the biggest religious organization helping to relocate illegals and house illegals and take care of illegals and educate illegals is Catholic Social Services. Strange little relationship you pointed out there, Shane.
It is.
So the Pope's denigrating Republicans, saying you need to take in more immigrants. By the way, and Alex says you need to speak up. By the way, isn't that interesting that would run right into the Catholic coffers?
Well, yeah, they get to handle the money.
There you go.
They've always done.
See what else. One Republican boycotted the speech. He also, and here's the other side of it. Hello, liberals, pay attention. The Pope also lecturing lawmakers about defending human life at every stage of its development and ending the death penalty. He also said he could not hide his concern for the family, which is threatened perhaps as never before from within and without, which was clearly a reference to gay marriage, which he does not support. So, while the left is falling all over themselves to fall at the pontiff's feet, this is the leader of 1.2 billion Christians worldwide. So I guess there's 1.2 billion country bumpkins and backwoods knuckle draggers and droolers out there, boys and girls. Just make note of the hypocrisy and the level of the hypocrisy. That's all I'm pointing out to you. It's 14 after on this free-for-all Friday. Light them up, boys and girls. 888-900-9966. That's 888-900-9966. Your calls are welcome. It's free-for-all Friday on the Steve Gruber Show.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
Never before have I turned on you when you look too good to me. Your beady eyes they can cut me in two and I just can't let you be. But it's a free for all and a heart I said you can bet your life. Stakes are high and so am I. It's in the air tonight.
Welcome back to it. It's Free for All Friday. Free for All Friday here on the program. All right, well, a pair of U.S. Border Patrol agents were shot on Drummond Island. 2 U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents shot at, I should say, weren't hit, early yesterday, Drummond Island, as they helped with the missing persons case. The agents assigned to the Sault Ste. Marie Customs Station were assisting the DNR and Michigan State Police about 2:30 in the morning yesterday. While searching for the person, agents discovered footprints and tracked them to a remote cabin. Near the cabin, agents were fired upon by an unknown person. They returned fire using their surface weapons while taking cover. The agents not injured. By late yesterday afternoon, the shooter was still not located. They're not sure if the shooter had been shot or hit during that exchange of gunfire. Most of you know where Drummond Island is. You basically, if you're from the Lower Peninsula, you go across the bridge, you turn right. You drive till you run out of real estate. There'll be a little ferry there that takes you across a little waterway, and you're on Drummond Island. About 1,000 people live there full time. And while we're at it with some Michigan headlines, Thursday at Hurley Medical Center, Hurley Medical Center in Flint, to be specific. Thursday at Hurley Medical Center in Flint, doctors warned the public that lead levels in that city are too high and many residents should stop drinking the water immediately. Hurley did their own independent study of Flint water. They have advised senior citizens, children, and pregnant women to stop drinking Flint water now. Or they say they could face irreversible damage. This damage could include memory loss and lowered IQs. They found double the acceptable amount of lead in Flint water. They tested the specific zip codes done in the recent Virginia Tech study and found excessive lead levels in children and babies. This is a big deal. This will affect them not only now, but for decades to come, said the doctors. They are advising people to use lead filters. Now, the head of the Genesee Health Department, the Genesee County Health Department, meanwhile, Mark Valakak, said that just looking at children won't identify any of the issues. A blood test is the only way to know for sure. Dr. Mona Hanna-Attisha, who ran the study, says this is not what our community needs. Now, the Virginia Tech study showed that Flint River water was specifically causing lead in old pipes to be released. A GoFundMe account was recently set up by the Virginia Tech Group with the intent of buying the citizens of Flint filters that can remove the lead from the water. Congressman Dan Kildee, a Democrat from the 5th Congressional District here in Michigan, issued the following statement. Immediate action needs to be taken by the state of Michigan to ensure that relief is provided to the people who are concerned about lead levels in their water. Today, as part of my ongoing efforts, I talked with the EPA Region 5 administrator about the state of Michigan providing emergency assistance, including lead-clearing filters and bottled water until a more permanent solution can be determined. So this is a pretty big deal. Senate Minority Leader Jim Ananich said the following: the findings released today are alarming. Our top priority has to be doing everything we can and finding every available resource to ensure access to safe water for Flint residents. Can you believe in this day and age that they have unsafe water? It's pretty shocking to me, actually. So the people of Flint will, of course, be keeping up on that story, and maybe we get the congressman here on the program. I see Ivy typing furiously, which means Dan Kildee is probably getting contacted before I even say anything. It's kind of the way it works around here. I talk about something, and I say, hey, could you contact? She goes, it's already done. As you know, it's a pretty good system we have here. I think it goes into her brain and it comes out of her fingertips. You know, and conversely, I've been doing most of the thinking for Shane most of the recent years of my life.
Wow.
Hey, I got something else for you. Let's shift gears a little bit. And that's this 93-pound Petoskey stone. This is actually a pretty cool story. This guy in northern Michigan, Tim O'Brien of Copemish. How do you say that? Copemish? How do you say that town?
You know, that's one that's always...
Get right in there.
Copemish. I think it is Copemish.
Yeah.
He had discovered this rock, couldn't get it out, the water, went back, lost the rock. It was in the sand in Lake Michigan. He went back. The rock was gone. He went back a day later with a shovel.
This is a 93-pound rock. This is not an easy rock to lose, by the way. It's like...
It got covered back up with sand. He had to regain his bearings, discovered it.
I'm going to say that thing's maybe 3 times the size of a basketball to get relative size. I mean, it's a big stone.
Very, very close. He found it. He dug it out. He carried it up 114 steps, 93-pound rock.
He's a stud.
And then didn't I mention to you, though, when we talked about it yesterday, that the state is probably going to want to talk about it?
Well, yeah, actually, the state's probably going to take it. Here's why. You know, and he said I think you mentioned he's okay with that as long as it goes to a good home, if you will. But there is a rule in the state of Michigan that you can't remove fossils or stone like that in excess of 25 pounds from state water or state land. Well, the stone itself is 93 pounds. A stone of good quality for its size. He said he's seen bigger ones, but this is about as big as you can carry.
Yeah.
So he's found bigger ones, but he retrieved this stone. Again, a 93-pound Petoskey stone retrieved on the 22nd.
Didn't the article say that is the biggest one known to be that we have exposed? I'm sure there's bigger ones down there, but it's the biggest one we have exposed.
He works at by the way, he works at a garden store here. I'm just looking at a footnote in this story. Mr. O'Brien works at this garden store. He said he works there, and they have a rock shop for polishing stones, but he thinks the 93-pound stone might be too much work to buff up. Now, I was thinking about how you would polish this thing, and I thought you would get a power tool, with one of those circular, buffing cloths is how you would have to do this. And I was going to take some time, but the one picture of this where it's perched up, there's a great picture of it perched up on a log, where it looks great. Not this picture, and the stone already looks halfway polished in the picture. It's just a tremendous find. Anyhow, there's a little bit of Michigan flavor for you. It's Free for All Friday. The phone number 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. It's the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
All righty, it's 33 after the hour on this Free for All Friday. Shane and I will be here to field your calls. Ivy's here just babysitting us both for the duration of the program, and that's a pretty important position. Do not underestimate the need for an adult babysitter from time to time, especially in this room. Right? Yeah, right. All right, so I just asked you a question, Shane. I said, what was the federal prison population in 1980? I told you that in 2010 there were just shy of 210,000 federal inmates in America. What was the number in 1980? Best guess.
I guess 50,000.
It's about half that, 24,000 and change. I bring that up because our next guest, Mike Riggs, is with Families Against Mandatory Minimums, the Director of Communications. And Mike, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on, Steve.
Glad to have you here. Now, listen, I think that was a pretty telling statistic that we have gone from 24,000 federal inmates in 1980 to 208,000 and change in 2010. Up almost 10 times. It's a solid 9 times larger and almost 10, and that's pretty incredible. And we, during that course of time, have been implementing mandatory minimums for all sorts of crimes across local, state, and federal crimes, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Started in 1986 with a big batch of federal mandatory minimums, and then the states began to slowly embrace them between 86 and 94, giving us a total national incarceration rate of about 2 million people.
Now, I have not been a big fan of mandatory minimums for a long time, for the simple reason that if you have mandatory sentencing, then what is the purpose for a judge? I could set my iMac right there on the desk, and you just got a computer. You don't need a judge, because if it's a mandatory minimum, what's the judge going to say? He's going to say, well, this and that and this and that, and here's your sentence, because that's all he's allowed to do anyway. What is the purpose of mitigating factors and input? Why have a judge? There's nothing to judge.
Exactly. In fact, we give the judge role over to prosecutors, which, a lot of good prosecutors out there. They definitely have a role in the courtroom, but I'm not sure I want them playing both the role of government strongman and judge in every case.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. It's much like giving the legislative power to the executive branch, like Barack Obama, but that's a discussion for a different time. One of the things you talk about here is Donald Trump's position. Of course, Donald Trump still leading in the polls, and he is a person who supports, he says in one quote here, several years ago there was a tremendous program in Richmond, Virginia called Project Exile. It said that if a violent felon used a gun to commit a crime, you will be prosecuted in federal court and go to prison for 5 years, no parole or early release. Obama's former Attorney General Eric Holder called that a cookie-cutter program, and that's ridiculous. I call that program a success. But Trump goes on to say this, and this is where I agree with this comment, and you need to tell me where I'm wrong, Mike. Why does that matter to law-abiding gun owners? Asked Donald Trump. Because they're the ones who anti-gun politicians and the media blame when criminals misuse guns. That part of the statement I wholeheartedly agree with.
Absolutely. In the sense that if law-abiding gun owners are lumped in with the people who commit gun crimes, then that gives legislators an opportunity to roll back gun rights. I think that is totally true. The reason I sort of object to this, to Trump's position on this, and not sort of, but completely, is, years after Project Exile was implemented, and basically what Project Exile did is the U.S. Attorney's Office in Richmond, that's the federal prosecutors, they said, let's take every gun case federal that we can. And basically, so what allowed them to do that was any felon, any convicted felon who was in possession of a firearm, federal prosecutors in Richmond told their state and local counterparts, give it to us, kick it up to us. This could be anybody. I mean, this could be somebody who, Project Exile was rolled out in '97. This could be somebody who had a felony DUI in 1980, and if they got caught with a gun, that could get kicked up to federal prosecutors. So part of the problem was that it was kind of a throwing spaghetti at the fridge thing. The other problem is that while crime went down in Richmond a year and a half after Project Exile was rolled out, it also went down in every other city in Virginia, in every other big city in the United States. Crime's been falling everywhere, regardless of whether
until 2015. Now hold on. Until 2015, when policing, by most accounts, has been relaxed in many of the big cities. You're right. Violent crime and crime in America has been on the decline pretty much my entire life until 2015, and you see spikes in violent crime in Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Chicago. I could go on, but you get my point.
Yeah, I think that's true. That's true. I mean, I don't know if it's going to hold. It's still crime is still historically pretty low, but we've seen a bump this year. It's real. I won't deny it at all. I think
the problem being is that we have relaxed policing. Mandatory sentencing is one thing, but we have relaxed policing standards because the police are scared to death to do their jobs because they might get accused of something that they have done and said they've done wrong. They could forfeit their life. They could forfeit their liberty. If people feel they've done something wrong in a use of force case, they could end up in prison. So police have backed off. Go on.
That's a good point. What I'd say about Project Exile and gun mandatory minimums in general is two. One, if you've got these across-the-board sentences, you get cases like Shaneen Allen and Brian Aitken in New Jersey, which I'm sure your listeners are familiar with those two. Both of them law-abiding gun owners. Both of them had all the paperwork, the mountains of paperwork that you need to be a legal gun owner in this country. I mean, you don't need to do paperwork to exercise your First Amendment right. These two had all that paperwork. They made the mistake of being legal gun owners who traveled into New Jersey where they were arrested and charged with violating New Jersey gun laws. And prosecutors had huge leverage over them and really had them both over a barrel because of mandatory minimums. This idea that, if you break the law regardless of, criminal intent, regardless of something like what you're doing isn't against the law in your home state, and you don't know that when you go to a new state. And both of them essentially found themselves in the position of having done nothing wrong and begging for their freedom and their lives. So that's one problem. I mean, if it's across the board, if it's one size fits all, legal gun owners are occasionally going to get snapped up in this, as are people who maybe had wayward youths, decades later, are totally walking the line, don't realize they're not allowed to own guns. Those people are going to get snapped up too. The other thing I'd say, and really quick, is that if we embrace a program like Project Exile, which the 6 years after Project Exile was implemented, researchers at the University of Chicago went back and looked at it and said, what kind of impact did it have compared to other big cities that didn't do a program like this at all? And there was none. There was no measurable difference between Richmond's crime rate falling and crime rates falling in other cities that had the same problems Richmond had, but didn't.
Now, hold on. Let me play devil's advocate for a moment here, because as you look at the crime rates around the country, we only have a few seconds left here. But during that decline over the last 25 or 30 years, many places had mandatory sentencing requirements. Our prison populations have ballooned, and violent crime across America has plummeted. And you're saying there is no cause and effect.
I'm saying that if you just look at another city like Richmond that didn't have a Project Exile, their crime fell too. And the reason I think legal gun owners and Second Amendment advocates should care about that is that if you roll out a program like Project Exile, and it's shown not to work. Anytime we roll out a program that we say combats violent crime, and it doesn't work, it allows gun control advocates to go back to the drawing board and say, well, this is why we got to take guns away from legal gun owners, too.
All right, Mike, we got to leave it right there. Mike Riggs, Families Against Mandatory Minimums.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
Now, I'm not sure, but I think it's possible that Kanye West was listening to the program yesterday. I think it's entirely possible Kanye West was listening to the Steve Gruber show, and why wouldn't he? To get a big dose of Michigan common sense to go about his day. But I think it's possible because Kanye West coming out yesterday and announcing his support and his endorsement for Dr. Ben Carson. Look at you both. You're both stunned. See, Shane, this is why we don't talk about it ahead of time. Come up to that microphone for a second. Kanye West is announcing his support for Dr. Ben Carson, said he is a brilliant man that deserves his support.
It's scary. Have you seen any of the antics that Kanye West has done?
Let me ask you something. Is Kanye West right? Is Dr. Ben Carson a brilliant man who deserves support?
Absolutely. That's the first time Mr. West has ever been correct.
About much of anything, I'll give you that right. But if you missed the interview with Dr. Ben Carson here on the program yesterday, go to stevegruber.com. The podcasts are there for you. And had a great interview with Carly Fiorina the week before. Just part of what we're trying to do for you here. And what we're talking about here, Ivy and I are talking about putting together with the team here some sort of an election special coming up where we can have the Fiorina interview, Marco Rubio interview, the Ben Carson interview, all these people that have had the opportunity to talk to because of the great team here, getting them to the program here with us. So Dr. Ben Carson was here. You can go to stevegruber.com, listen to the interview from yesterday and Carly Fiorina from the week before, and it's all there for you. All right, and you can also you'll be able to go back and reflect on the interview with Congressman Bill Huizenga. That's also to be found on the podcast at stevegruber.com because he is our next guest here on the program. Congressman, welcome back.
Hey, well, good to be with you. I'm not quite sure I measure up to the luminaries that you've got on your shows. So
you're right up there. Listen, you're a member of Congress now. I mean, Dr. Carson did get Kanye West's endorsement for president. I don't. As soon as you get Kanye West's endorsement, Congressman, we'll have you right back on the program. I guarantee you that.
Well, this was good having the last time on your show, I guess. So I don't think Kanye's going to be with me.
It's a possibility. Anyhow, you've been good, it seems.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay, so this conversation, we're going to shift gears to something more serious here. And I want to focus on the last presidential debate when Carly Fiorina, hit home and hit a home run, most would say, with her conversation about Planned Parenthood. And then the left-wing media came out and said, well, she's talking about something in a video with a fetus kicking, so that doesn't exist. And then yesterday, Carly Fiorina came out with maybe the most powerful, well, I should say a super PAC, not her directly, but a super PAC supporting her with the most powerful video I've ever seen about abortion. And so the conversation about Planned Parenthood and who are we as a nation is front and center. It's also front and center in Congress. What's happening on your end?
Yeah, obviously, the Pope sort of underscored this as well yesterday. Probably the most spontaneous and I would say loud applause came when he talked about the sanctity and preciousness of life, and it is something that strikes, I think, at our collective national soul. And we've got serious issues. More people need to learn and see what has been done by Planned Parenthood in these videos. But it's not just about Planned Parenthood; it's about anybody willing to traffic in these body parts and those kinds of things. I think this has to be dealt with by us as a nation. You've got the Senate trying to push through a bill that defunds them. We have already done that in the House. We're going to continue to try and do that. But with this president, somehow or another, he has held up this particular organization
Yeah, he has.
In a sacrosanct way, and it's just not.
Yeah. Now, even worse here, it came to my attention, I think it was last week, that 177 of your colleagues there in Congress voted against a bill that would require doctors to provide the necessary medical help if a fetus somehow comes out alive during an abortion, which is what we call, I guess, a birth, and a baby is there. 177 Americans, Democrats, voted that the doctor does not need to provide medical care to a viable fetus there in the room. Frankly, what the hell is wrong with these people?
Yeah, I know, it's stunning. That was called the Pain Capable bill, and Trent Franks and Diane Black and a number of others. And I actually was my church's Right to Life rep for 10 years. This is something that's very near and dear to my wife and my heart as well. And it is stunning as you sit there and just go, seriously, you're going to botch an abortion and have the child that could survive, and you're not going to do anything for it. It boggles the mind. Now, the good thing is that this is one of the few things where there are still some pro-life Democrats that are out there. I give them a whole lot of credit. It's a lot
tough
easier
place
to
for them to
pro-life
stand.
in the Republican Party than it is in their party.
Right. How is it the Christians, honestly, are free game for liberals every day, clinging to our guns and Bibles, backwood bumpkins, if you will. We're not much smarter than the family dog until the Pope comes to town, and then all of a sudden let's share and celebrate our faith. I mean, what a bunch of disingenuous, you fill in the blank, but it's just a little bit too much.
It's been amazing. In fact, I had a priest from Grand Rapids named Father Robert Sirico, who heads up the Acton Institute. He was the founder of the Acton Institute, and it's a phenomenal free market organization. But we were talking a little bit about that, and it's these people who have this disdain for faith, but have somehow thought that this Pope is fitting into their political agenda. And
exactly.
Now have just fawned over him, and it's really kind of embarrassing for them because I think this enthusiasm is going to come back and haunt them at some point when it's a pope that's not maybe quite where they are.
We hate Christians.
He is.
Yeah, we don't like anything Christianity is until we see the Pope-mobile. Then we're big fans. Anyhow, Congressman, always a pleasure. Come back anytime.
You got it.
There you have it, everybody. Congressman Bill Huizenga is still looking for his Kanye West endorsement, but we're working on it for him here on the Steve Gruber Show on a Free-for-All Friday.